Inna. Welcome to Deep Into Sleep podcast.
Hi, Ishan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Both of our names start with a E.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I know. I know you actually. You teach language and you know quite a lot knowledge about learning. So I'm very excited to talk to you about sleep and learning today. Do you want to introduce yourself to our audience first?
Yeah, happily. So I'm Inna Koblents, and originally I come from Ukraine. And so my native languages are Russian and Ukrainian. Then I went to university and I learned English as a foreign language and was trained to be an English teacher for foreigners. Then I moved to Italy at some point of my life and got a degree there at the University for Foreigners and was also trained as a teacher of Italian as a foreign language or second language. And I'm currently living and teaching in Germany. So quite a geography.
Yeah, wow, quite a lot of traveling, a lot of learning. Yeah. So have you, like, in your own experience of learning and traveling, to me, I think learning a new language is quite difficult. And I don't know how you feel about that. And sometimes when I was younger, I remember people say, well, when you learn a new language, right, you sleep with it. I remember I leave the English tapes on when I learned English and I forgot to turn it off. Somehow I think, oh, it's going to be helpful to me. I just going to sleep with it. Is that true?
Well, it's partly true. We could talk about it a bit later into our
Uh-huh.
podcast because really what I feel about learning and now also teaching languages is that some people perceive it as hard work.
Mm.
Others instead want a lighter approach and really want to learn in sleep. And some people say learning languages is so hard, you cannot naturally speak a language if it's not your first language that you grew up with. Others say, well, I'm ready to invest time and energy into learning a language, but I want to be sure that the approach I'm choosing is right for me. And many people also ask exactly this: can I learn while I'm sleeping? Because I don't want to waste time. I want to organize my learning efficiently and also learn while I'm sleeping.
That's such a good question. Can I learn while I'm sleeping? Wow. In a way, I feel like you need to put some effort into learning while you are conscious, when you are awake. But yes, what kind of role actually sleep is playing in our learning process?
Yeah, I would like to talk about it really seriously now. Then we'll have some fun later on.
Yeah.
And yeah, so putting effort into learning a language while you're awake is essential. If you just try to learn while you're sleeping, it doesn't work. And why does it happen so? Because an important part or element or fragment or segment, you call it in our brain, which is hippocampus, that is responsible both for learning, remembering, and forgetting, which is an essential thing. Yeah. So this part, and it's such a small hippo like object, I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, your listeners could go and Google what it looks like. It's a tiny element of our brain that does great work. What it actually does, it allows our memory to get rid of non-essential stuff, of things that we have had contact with prior to going to bed and that we don't need or won't need later. So this tiny thing called hippocampus gets rid of unnecessary stuff. But what is also important for learning a language efficiently is to to give this order to our brain and to hippocampus as well, to remember, to memorize important stuff. That's why learning before we go to bed and memorizing things on purpose, learning with effort, gives a chance to hippocampus to kind of understand that we need this stuff because we put effort to it, to learning it, to memorizing it. Then while sleeping, hippocampus helps our brain and our memory get rid of unnecessary stuff and instead keep the track and the memory of the things that we thought we would need while we were awake. So this determination is important.
So sounds like for this center, this memory center, we need to put effort in, send a strong signal to help triggering it into operation, and not just counting on it just to start doing its own work.
Because it's a very smart little thing. It doesn't memorize just by chance, and it doesn't forget just by chance.
That's a good
So
point.
it is ruled by our determination somehow. So, well, the more we revise, the more effort we put into learning, the more we are aware of the necessity to use this stuff later, the more, the higher chance there is this hippocampus in our brain will take care of keeping the memory of it. Then if not, we see a lot of faces in the city, in a supermarket, we perceive, but then thanks to hippocampus, we forget and we don't need them, we just forget. But if we want to remember a person, then we look carefully, we memorize, and then we don't forget. Why? Because hippocampus, does not throw away the memory of something that we put intentional attention to.
Right, that totally makes sense. Think about how many information is going to come into us every single day, right? We are receiving so much, and our brain cannot overload. Our brain have to have some mechanism there helping to protect ourselves and sort out what is important, code it in, remember it, and what is not important, and just delete it, forget about it. And sounds like it's just our brain have to use some kind of way to decide what is important, what is not. If we pay more attention to something, we look at it several times, right? Constantly focus on that, the brain possibly will categorize that as, oh, important. We need to keep it in, not throw it yet.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
Remind me a little bit, not directly about our memory center, but this mechanism you are discussing actually reminded me of mindfulness in a way. Kind of like, right, we have wandering mind naturally every day. Sometimes we have to purposely bring the attention back to the present moment, to what is right in front of us. That's some effort to help our attention shift back, or else we wander again, we did not hear or really experiencing things. That's something we can put effort in to manage it.
Yeah, sure. Then think of how a child learns their first language. They're not mindful about how they live and memorize words. They don't put effort, actually. Oh, well, they do, but it's unintentional. They just say stuff, then adults, parents, caregivers correct them. The next time they say better, and later on they say even better, until they know their mother tongue perfectly. without being aware, without being mindful about this stuff, just because they're still small. But the amount of repetition, the same word over and over again, corrections, saying again, etc., brings to this result that a child that is 2 years old, 3 years old, speaks perfectly thanks to a lot of repetition. And this has also got a lot to do with how our brain works, yeah, because these connections between the neurons that are created when we uh, get new information, when we repeat, when we get corrections. Yeah, so these new connections are created. And thanks to this, the more we repeat, the stronger these connections get, the better we remember. If we did so many repetitions being mindful, aware, and adult, we could get results much faster, but we don't. We're lazy. We have, as you said, this wandering mind. We don't want to put effort into it. So we get our results later on. But, well, the mechanism is basically the same. The more repetition there is, the better and the faster the connections grow and the faster we get the result in learning language.
Mm. So think about this. Does that mean if we put a lot of effort in during the daytime when we are conscious, then we may be able to benefit some learning process happening in our brain while we're asleep?
Exactly so. Exactly so. And one thing is that if we are aware and mindful and while we're conscious and we learn like with determination while we're awake, then in sleep, what I described previously, these processes happen and we don't forget what we put effort into. Mm?
Mm.
Another interesting thing was discovered by scientists who wanted to investigate into how or whether we can actually learn new stuff while we sleep.
Ah.
And there is interesting research. So imagine if we listen to a tape, as you said also, yeah, if we listen to a tape with a foreign language, with some words in a foreign language while we sleep, can we learn these words? Research shows that we do if we had learned these words previously before going to bed.
Oh.
And then if we continue listening to this stuff in the 2-3 first hours of sleep, our results the next day in retrieving the memories of these new words will be better compared to a control group who did not listen while asleep.
Huh, interesting. So we cannot count sleep to learn new things totally by itself. But if we learned, like today, I learned some new words, maybe in Italian, right? And I then don't know any word, but so it's totally to me a new.
You do, you
Uh,
do. You already do know Italian words like
oh,
pizza. Do you know the word pizza? It's Italian.
oh, I know Italian now. I never
You
know
do.
that. Okay. Thank you. Wow, never thought about that. So if I learn several new words today and tonight when I go to bed, I record it, I keep on listening to it. Sounds like during the light stage of sleep, the first oh no, actually it's light stage, possibly deep sleep. The first several hours actually we possibly are in partly in deep sleep. And then wow, so
Researchers
tomorrow.
say 2-3 hours. Yeah, the first 2-3 hours.
Right.
So it's yeah, light sleep, then deep sleep,
Yeah.
then yeah, the first stage.
Right, great. And then tomorrow I actually can remember it better. Wow. I don't know that research. That's
That
so cool.
probably is also It is cool. It is cool. And when my students or coachees ask me whether they can learn new words when they sleep, I say this, okay, guys, you can, but before that, do learn them when you're awake. Then you can improve your results. And this is based on scientific data. Actually, yes, how it works, the same areas of our brain, and this was also researched by means of, I'm not sure if I can pronounce this device correctly, encephalographic device.
Oh.
Yeah, I believe it's called like that.
Mhm.
Researchers used encephalographic device to track which areas in human brain get activated
Oh.
while learning new vocabulary or while learning, uh, well, verbal input.
Mm.
And they discovered that the same areas are activated while we're awake and in sleep.
Oh,
You
okay.
see, so when we are awake, certain brain areas are activated when we learn stuff.
Mhm.
When we sleep, the same areas of brain are activated. And then if we hear the same words, the same brain areas get activated and help us learn more effectively.
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. I remember I interviewed Dr. Guy Leishner from UK a long time ago on the podcast. He mentioned actually when we are asleep, part of our brain is still quite active. Sounds like the part of the memory center and learning center is still active. And I know as a psychologist, I know the emotional center also very active when we are asleep. And he also mentioned that when we are awake, part of the brain actually is asleep, so it's inactive. So it's very interesting how like we sleep is not like what we think, right? When we sleep, everything shut down, everything stop. It's not like that.
That's amazing, and it really shows how wired, how interestingly wired our brain is. It's
Yeah,
not that simple. I'm asleep or I'm awake. Not that simple at all.
right. Yeah, it's that's I think that's why the topic of sleep is so fascinating to me. I feel like we still have so much we don't know, even like why we dream, what's really happening inside our brain and our body when we're asleep versus when we are awake. I don't think there's a clear answer to everything yet. Mhm.
Not yet, but researchers are working on it and give us some really good food for thought and for organizing our learning in the best possible way based on what they've researched. It is
Yeah,
amazing.
it is. All this research you shared, we can totally try to use it in our own learning. So I'm curious, when you learn language yourself, did you try any of these methods? And did you ever try like learn through sleep or something like that? Ever worked for you?
You see, I can't check that because I'm not equipped with a laboratory. Yeah, so I can't check if I learn better than I would have if I didn't do what I do. Yeah,
Mhm.
but what I do, I don't deliberately learn or put recordings on when I sleep. But before I fall asleep, I still watch some YouTube videos in different languages, whether a language that is already that I am familiar with or a new language. And I believe it works somehow. I might not remember what were the last 20 minutes of that video because I already fell asleep. And I cannot check whether I've learned anything new because I don't have these laboratory things, this laboratory equipment. But what I really notice and what works for me is very much aligned with some of the research. If I need to take an exam and I learn before, then I go to bed not very late so that I have enough hours of sleep. And then I'm usually efficient in taking exams. I normally pass and I don't have any trouble being concentrated or retrieving stuff. I can never, in all the recent years at least, I can never complain about suddenly forgetting a word. Who knows? There are also, there are also interesting investigations in which, in the conclusions, scientists say, and then we don't know if this result is due to this or that organization of learning, or just due to the fact that the control group was just tired and sleepy at the time of the experiment because they kind of divided people into two groups. One group learned, then had 8 hours of sleep, and then came back to the laboratory to check the results of memorizing stuff. And another group learned and did not have sufficient sleep. And so scientists say, okay, we don't know, maybe they just did not sleep enough, and that's the problem.
Yeah, that's part of the how complicated, right, scientific research could be. And there are hypotheses, you do the research, but then how you explain the result. And there could be other things, but that means more research is needed to really figure that out. But when you talk about that, remind me of an old saying. I don't know whether it's true at all, but they say, if you are learning a new language and you start dreaming that you, in your dream, you speak this language, then that means you actually are really mastering it, or somehow that means you are learning it well. I remember when I learned English since I was in elementary school in China. And for so many years, I only vividly recall I dream about speaking English when I first came to America, the first day. I guess it's just too many input. Everyone's talking about English. I've never been in this kind of environment all day long. And then I start dreaming about speaking it. And then I was very excited when I woke up. I was like, finally, I dream about it.
That's just wonderful what you're saying, because it's your experience, like you really felt that, yeah? And when you say about it, do you believe now that you really had this dream in English and you remember distinct words in English? Or is it an emotional part that you felt as if you were speaking English? What does it feel to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now I think back, I feel like it possibly not really about each single word, how much I'm learning. I feel like it's a signal, or it's an indication that I'm really start blending into this language environment. And that's like how familiar, how comfortable I am by listening to the language all day long. And then it's become natural language in my dream. I'm speaking that language no matter what my level is in real life, but in my dream, actually, I recall it was comfortable. It was not scary when I speak that in my dream. So I think it's definitely more emotional component, and build the confidence.
Yeah, why I asked that is exactly for this reason, whether it's your idea of speaking this language, or really the words, some distinct words that you remember. But then I would have another question. And I also asked my students who say, oh, I finally had a dream in English, in Italian, in whatever new language. And I don't want to discourage people, naturally. But then I ask myself, okay, in a dream, there are other functions. Verbal components are not so important. So probably it's when we recall a dream, we put it into words, and then we start finding some words into which to verbalize kind of our dream that did not have this verbal component while we were sleeping and dreaming. But that's another topic, yeah. So we should probably ask an expert in this area who somehow has access to investigating whether people dream in words of a language or not. I believe not, but well,
Yeah, but
it would be
it's very
curious.
interesting. A lot in our mind. I will search, see whether I know any sleep expert doing research on the language, on memory, and dreams. But I know one function of dreaming of our REM sleep actually is to consolidate our emotional memories.
Mhm.
So even if we are dreaming about speaking a language, I'm wondering whether there's a lot of emotional component in this memory related to, or this experience related to this language. Actually, it's being understood by our brain during or through a format of dreaming.
That would be curious to get to know about. And I wonder what technology scientists use or would use to research this stuff. Because what do you grasp when you investigate dreams?
Mm.
Well,
Yeah,
but
fascinating.
probably also this encephalographic thing could track these areas that get activated, whether they are the same as verbal input or different or closer to images or whatever.
Yeah, I went to some lectures of about sleep before. I think they do some research on animals. They use fMRI machine, right? So you can see which brain area is activated. But they also inject some colorful trackers into the brain or into the body of the animals. It's not, it's harmless basically based on my understanding, but it can shiny be shiny, so you through the machine you can see which area actually is very active. So it's super cool. I know a lot of new technologies are out there, and the researchers are using more and more tools to figure out these questions.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I believe these scientists have fun in their laboratories when they study this stuff, especially if it's colored.
Yeah, so it's great. I really enjoy learning all these ways of learning a new language. So you teach language quite a lot. Have you noticed some of your students may get really nervous about learning language or get frustrated if it does not go well for them? And because I know, like during the daytime, if you try to learn or and take some kind of language test, it does not go well, or you feel like you keep on forgetting, you cannot remember what you need to remember. I saw someone with severe insomnia, like students, they said, I'm learning English, it does not go well. I just, I worry about it all the time and I cannot fall asleep easily. So I'm wondering, is that common?
With students, I believe it is. I mean, students who have to take exams or tests or something. And let's put it so, when I work with kids, they never have any kind of these troubles.
Oh.
They just don't know it can be stressful. They play. If they don't remember a certain word or some words, they try to gesticulate, to mime, and let me understand what they mean. Then I help them with the word. And I've never heard of any sleeping issues in kids.
Oh.
Adults who are not students anymore, like grown up people who learn a language for work, for just self development, whatever, uh, usually don't report on sleep issues, but say they do get frustrated when they realize they've put much effort and it doesn't bring the fruit they hoped for,
Hmm.
especially when they travel and try to hold a conversation with a native speaker and either don't understand or get blocked while they want to say something. This is very common. And no, here we don't have these sleeping issues. That's rather a student's problem.
Mm.
But for students, I would just recommend getting to know this stuff about the research and say sleep is part of your preparation. Just don't study too late at night. Finish learning at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., have a walk, go to bed at 11, like that. Because many students believe the more they study when they're awake, the better they get prepared. And then they're stressed, then they don't sleep well, then they suffer during the exam. So it's a vicious circle that I would recommend to just break by healthy routines.
Yeah.
Just by healthy sleeping routines. People somehow don't trust this. And I think your podcast is and will be helpful to many who will finally hear that these boring things about routines, just organize your day, just live a normal routine. And this will help you to learn better, to succeed, to pass exams. It's so important.
Exactly. Oh, I'm so happy you mentioned that because I know quite a lot of research also, not specifically about language learning, but about memory learning in general is I also have some expert here talk on the show, talk about this before, that if you can protect your sleep the amount that your body really needs, like typically how you sleep, right? And then that's what really going to boost the performance, the memory, the concentration, your academic performance, everything the next day. So I remember one of the Dr. Grandner, um, a sleep specialist, mentioned when he has an important day the next day, he gonna present, he gonna do quite a lot of heavy work. He especially gonna pay attention to try to go to bed a little bit early because he knows from research and his own personal experience that if you can sleep very well, that's what you need to perform so well next day. A lot of time we are doing the opposite, or like I need to like squeeze in more information before tomorrow's big day. I need like, sleep is not important. I can try to repeat this knowledge one more time, 1 more hour, 2 more hour, and then I end up only sleep half the time I normally sleep. I think that's totally worth it. But unconsciously, actually, we don't know what's happening, right, to our brain, to our body when we sacrifice our sleep. That actually hurts our performance so bad the next day. The researchers tried to test people's reaction time and the cognitive processing. It definitely significantly lower the next day. No matter how many more hours you study, your performance is lower. You think slower the next day, and it's harder for you to retrieve memories. And also, there are research I know during the daytime for students. Even if you take a short nap, sometime after this short, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes nap, your performance possibly can increase a little bit. And sleep is just important. Sleep, rest is so important.
Physical activity, just walking, not always stressing out because you have an important exam, but having your normal routines, healthy routines that help you perform better. That's exactly what you're saying about. And that's also one of our topics that we repeat regularly on a podcast that I co host with a colleague in Germany. The podcast is in English and it's called Live and Learn, where we discuss this stuff about how we live and learn our personal and professional experience. And when we have our episodes dedicated to how to perform in a job interview, how to perform in an exam, how to perform in a language exam if you want to get a certificate in a language, we always say that your performance is not all your effort that you put into preparation and an exam itself, but it all starts with healthy routines. It Your performance during the exam starts the night before, when you get ready to go to bed. That's when your preparation starts, not during the exam, not when you do your tasks.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so the podcast called Learn and Live and Learn.
Live and learn, exactly.
Okay, great. I also know you just started another podcast by yourself. Do you want to tell us what it's about?
Happily, I will. And this second podcast, which is freshly baked, is in Italian, and it's called La tua voce all'estero, which translated into English is Your Voice Abroad, where I want to share, um, not so much to share my experience as to accompany people who want to learn a foreign language or to adapt to a new country.
Wow.
So I'm trying to give this voice to people who are still in search of their own voice in another language.
Great. Yeah. So if any of our listeners, if you speak Italian and you want to check out Ina's podcast, so you can go to search it out. I cannot repeat that name, but sounds beautiful.
I can repeat it. La tua voce all'estero. And if you want to share the links in the show notes, I will be grateful. And I hope your listeners can benefit from listening to both podcasts.
Definitely, definitely. Any show note, any links, I would love to put it on the show notes. And also, Ina, if any of our listeners really love what you shared and they want to learn from you or they want to find more information about you, where can they find you?
Well, I have got a very simple version of a website that you can also link in the show notes, but mostly I'm present on the social media. Both podcasts are also on Instagram and Facebook. Live and Learn is more present everywhere on all the main social media. And yeah, you're welcome. Take a listen, get and visit us on our social media, and live and learn, sleep well, organize your routines smartly, and you're due to succeed.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ina. I love the title of your podcast, Live and Learn, right? We are lifelong learners and don't be afraid, but don't let learning take over of your life. Still take good care of yourself and maintain a great routine, and learn will come along. Put some effort in for sure, but it's not supposed to eat up everything else. So live and learn happily.
That's a
Thank you.
perfect, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a perfect summary of what we have been talking about here on your podcast, and also what we try to share on other podcasts as well. Because life is beautiful. Why stress out? Live and learn, enjoy, be happy.
yeah, exactly. Live and learn, enjoy and be happy. Love that. Thank you so much for coming to the show today, Ina.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great pleasure, really.
Thank you for watching our videos or listening to our podcast. If you like our show, please feel free to subscribe, like, and share it. If you have any questions or feedback, we would always love to hear from you. You can either email us or leave feedback on our website at mindbodygarden.com or directly under the YouTube video channel. Thank you very much for your company today, and hopefully to hear from you
or have you with us next time.